Mark Twain put it so well. You know, when I was 18, I believed my father knew nothing. And when I was 21, I couldn't believe how much he'd learned in 3 years. And there's that phenomenon, isn't it? And, you know, it's like, it's a real paradox in a way that my son needs to separate out from me in order to come back to me. It's about coming in, that he needs to go into adulthood and come back to you not as son, but as adult friend, right? Or adult son. But that he doesn't want the father-son relationship. Young people, 18-year-olds, you don't parent an 18-year-old. You have an adult-adult relationship with them, right? And I think what's important is to be honest with him and say how much your relationship with him matters to you, how much you're fearful of it drifting, and that you would love continued contact with him, and you appreciate that he also needs to fly the nest and make his new friends out there. But you would really love to continue to deepen your relationship with him. Be open, be honest. Because we don't tend to be, sure we don't. We hold it in our hearts, right? We love our sons and daughters. We want to maintain a relationship with them, but be sure you want to maintain now an adult relationship, not the father-son relationship, because that's a threat to young people. So talk with them and give the I message. I miss your company. I would love more contact with you. Not you're drifting away. Because if you give the you message, you're putting it all over in him, and you're saying nothing about yourself. When you give the I message, you're talking about yourself. And it's so non-threatening then for your son or daughter. They can really hear you then. So I would love more time with you. Of course I would. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, thank you. I mean, one of the major fears of parents and teachers as well is of being judged, right? It was interesting, a colleague of mine has developed this program because separation now and divorce is increasing all the time in Ireland. And I mean, just think about the number of people you now know who are, you know, single parents now, separated, right? Looking after children on their own, or there's a kind of a custody situation or whatever. And anyway, she developed this program to try and help parents who have separated and their children. And she went, she was saying it to a friend, right? There was another story there. She was saying it to a friend about the course, and she's going to have to charge something for the course, not a great lot amount. And the friend said to her, well, she said, I'd prefer now to use the money to buy something for the house. Right? And then my colleague said to her, well, if there was no charge, would you come to the course? And the woman said, no, I would not want to discover whether I've hurt my child or not. And that's the real fear for many people. And they do then stick, the label takes the responsibility out of the family, doesn't it? Yeah. And I can totally understand that, right? But we know the label helps the parents and the teachers, it doesn't help the child, right? Child is often medicated, the medication doesn't help the child. But you see, we need to create safety for parents and teachers to be open and to looking like what I call narrative and story. And we know that now. And you know that that's happening now in medicine. They're now introducing what they call narrative medicine, because they're recognizing that a minimum of 1 in 4 people who come to GPs with various symptoms, they send them for test after test after test after test, and they can't discover any organic basis. So they're now beginning to look at narrative. And of course, once they look at narrative, they find out this person's very stressed, or they're highly anxious, or they're addicted to work, or addicted to perfectionism, and they now know that the source lies in their lifestyle and in their fears and anxieties, and that's producing the physical symptom. So there's a real shift towards looking at narrative, and it's going to come also with children's difficulties. When they present with difficult behaviours, of course they need help, but they don't need a label. And what we need to do is to identify the needs of the child, the hidden issues most of all, right? And then look at the kind of help that they need, and their parents and their teachers, right? But we don't need any labels. It's the identification of needs is the issue. Labels just screen out the real issues that need to be looked at. And all I can say to another person, this is what I feel would help. Can I suggest maybe you read this? I've read this thing and I really, help me to see there's a different way of looking at child's difficulties. And if it helps, then I'd like to support you in it. That's all you can do. Send the messages, by the way. Don't say you need to do this, you need to do that, because they're going to be backing off like that. Whereas you say, well, this is what I found helpful, or I found this book useful, or I was at this lecture and I got this insight, I'm wondering would it help? Keep to the messages. What often helps there, by the way, when, say something once, and if they're not, receptive to it, leave it, but then deepen relationship. If you deepen relationship with somebody, they feel secure with you, very often the hidden issues begin to come up again. And they may then seek help. So relationship is always the key issue, whether it's between a friend or a colleague or a therapist and a client, or a doctor and a client, or a manager and a worker. Relationship is the most important issue. And if that relationship creates a depth with the person, they will actually come into consciousness and begin to seek the help they need. Okay, the question, what sends us into hiding? What sends us into hiding? We've all gone into hiding, come on. Pain, threat.
Fear.
Well, fear is a response to threat. Fear is your friend that alerts you to threat, right? So threat is what sends us into hiding. Well, how does threat occur? Where does it occur? In relationships. It's in relationships that we experience threat. My father, my mother, brothers, sister, teachers, aunts, uncles. Remember, it takes the world to raise a child. But it is threat within relationship that sends us into hiding. What is going to bring us out of hiding? Security, secure relationships, unconditional regard and love, belief, warmth, affection, support, understanding, compassion. And the more that we have those with each other, the more we now come into consciousness. Once threat is there, we'll stay in unconsciousness, and that's huge wisdom, right? Equally, when we begin to feel safe, think of the young man, right, with the 6 months silence, and how he has emerged so much because of the patience and because of the holding. And once the security begins to emerge, right, he comes into consciousness. Bit by bit, not suddenly, by the way, but bit by bit. And so relationship is the issue. And when you struggle, remember that so many people will say to me, how do I have a relationship with myself? Now, it's the most important relationship of all. And most people will tell me, how do I have a relationship with myself? And why is that? Why is that we struggle with that knowing of how to have a relationship with yourself, right? The depth of love for myself, the depth of understanding, the caring, the nurture, the encouragement, the support, the deep regard, right? The compassion, the warmth, the affection. These are all there for myself. But we have no models for it. Who models that for us? That deep connection with self, that what I call that aloneness. Aloneness means all oneness. And have you come into that all oneness with yourself? Because if you have, you bring a fullness to another. But if you have no sense of how to have a relationship with yourself, then you need to go and sit with somebody who has a relationship with themselves and provides then the bridge for you to begin to discover that for yourself. And it's like that young woman today that wants to take her life, she wants to kill herself. And there's some connection has happened today, some hope that she now feels that I see her for herself. I'm now creating for her what she didn't get in her own home. So it's relationship. But the relationship needs to be conscious, it needs to be unconditional, it needs to be enduring and consistent. And you can only give it when you have it for yourself. I think meditation helps, right? It's a technique, right? I'm not a great believer in techniques, to be honest, right? And we know in psychotherapy we're moving very much away from techniques to relationship. We now know it's relationship that brings about change. But I think meditation is a good technique. it quiets you, it stills you. But I'm a great believer in just being in touch with what arises. If anger arises for me, I'm thinking, oh, friend anger, what is it that you want me to do for me? If anxiety arises for me, I think, oh my God, friend anxiety, what is that you want me to resolve for myself? So I'm always a little afraid of a meditation because I think it becomes a spiritual bypassing. In other words, I feel great when I meditate, but now when I go out into relationship again, I go back into my defensive places because meditation does not resolve what's hidden. Yeah, and I think what's important with mindfulness, when you touch into your anger, do you now call it friend?
Maybe friend.
Yeah, and that's the important thing because it's trying to draw your attention to what's hidden. And some mindfulness meditation actually talks about letting go of the anger, right? Letting go of the fear. You're letting go of friends when you do that. And so there's that difference, right? Okay. And I always hear mindfulness as mind your fullness, by the way. Right, so, okay. Okay, thank you. Is that okay? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Listen, thank you very much. Thank you. I'll be outside.